you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the lady's a little hoarse this morning, the Iron Lady. But welcome to the big show. For over 16 years and nearly 3,000 episodes, we bring in the Chris Voss Show. We are the oldest broadcasting podcast in existence out of a handful still left. And we're the only one that's doing daily interviews and posting them pretty much 2 times a day, actually, when you really do the math. Help support the last living great podcast. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places in it. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today, an amazing young man on the show. We're joined by him to talk about his latest book called Custom Made Spin for a New World Disorder, Political Storms, Corrosive Money, and Slick Oil by Peter D. Krassel. We're going to get into it with him and find out all the deets and all that good stuff and some of his experience and knowledge and what he knows. He is a lawyer, strategic planner, and author of the aforementioned book, and he has books in his series and blogs at custommadebooks.com. He's published 8 books in the series and hundreds of blogs. The book covers and several blog illustrations were displayed on the Van S wall of the Hong Kong Foreign Correspondents Club in 2024 and at Hillel at UCLA in 2025. Welcome to the show. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Congratulations on your long run.
I can't feel my legs, so there's that. How are you doing? Can you feel your legs?
Hanging in. It's a little hot to run out here in Arizona.
Yeah. Youth is wasted on the young, my friend. I got to tell you, man. I feel
agree.
Yeah. So give us a .com for you or any other social media where you want people to get to know you better.
The best place to get to know me better is to go to custommadebooks.com, spelled CUSTOM, made, M-A-I-D, books, BOOKS.com. I call my books custom made, spelled M-A-I-D and not M-A-D-E, because the series of my books are to point out to we the people that I think we are maids. We're constantly cleaning up the mess career politicians make, and then we're dumb enough to pay for it in the form of taxes. And as someone who spends half their time living in Asia, where maids are relatively inexpensive, I still haven't found a maid that'll pay me to clean up my mess. So how come we the people are constantly cleaning up career politicians' mess? So it's not a typo. That's the reason it's spelt that way.
I thought that was interesting to leave that in the title. That was one of the first questions you got out of the way for me. The custom-made spin. Now, why do you call it custom-made spin? Is that what you aforementioned, or is there a different?
That was custom-made spin is the first book because the world is run by political spin. And if we are truly to be informed and intelligent citizens and know how to vote and how to conduct ourselves and make sure we're led by the proper leaders, it's important to be able to separate the spin from the facts. And the book came out before you could fact check. Oh. And today it's a lot easier to fact check. In my latest book that is coming up next month, which is the 2-state solution on custom Maid Palestine, talks at length about the spin that the world has been subjected to about the Palestinian issue. Oh. And that's why I decided it's time to try and set the record straight if we truly want to have a 2-state solution for the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Now, do we want to feature that book on the show or the one we're currently talking about? Do we want to talk this new one?
The Palestine. Yeah, the Palestine.
Okay. All right. We'll switch up gears. So the two-state solution, custom-made Palestine for a new world disorder will feature then. And that's available August 1st. It's coming out.
September 1st. September 1st. I know the date got moved because of printing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at your website and that threw me.
Yeah, I know. I pointed it out to them earlier today.
All right. Sounds good then. So people can pre-order this book on Amazon and do all those things. So give us a deeper rundown now of the two-state solution. And it sounds like you have some solutions for us.
At least I have a starting point, and hopefully it winds up being a solution. But everyone seems to think that Palestine is limited to the borders of Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank, and everyone's fighting over that piece of dirt. They are fighting over that piece of dirt, but because of the political spin that we talked about earlier, because if you look at the history and geography of Palestine, it goes back to the Persian Zoroastrian times. And Palestine was never a state, it was always a province. But the province included Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, Gaza, even southern Turkey. People don't realize that all of that area has historically been Palestine, and all these new countries only came about after World War II. And I am pointing out that if you're going to look for a solution, why are we just focused on Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank when that was always part of a greater Palestine? And historically, the British, the French, and the Russians, with their secret agreements to get the Arabs to fight on their side against the Ottoman Empire and the Germans in World War I, made a lot of broken promises. They promised the Sharif of Mecca that if he joined the Christian British and the French and Russians to fight their fellow Muslim Turks, they would make him king of Arabia. And at the same time, they would make his sons kings of Syria and Iraq, in violation of an agreement they had with the French, that the French would have Syria and Lebanon, the Russians would get Turkey, and the Brits would get the rest. Another secret agreement. In the meantime, that was in 1916. Come 1917, Russian Revolution, Bolsheviks say, we are not going to be colonizers. We don't want Turkey. We are removing ourselves from the agreement. That's when the agreement became public. Of course, the Sharif of Mecca went a little crazy. He said, wait a minute, you promised me something you can't give me. No, we'll work it out. Don't worry. It was a misunderstanding, typical political spin. In the meantime, they're telling the House of Saud and arming him and saying, if you want to get rid of the Sharif of Mecca, that's fine with us, but don't tell him. So again, another side deal. In the meantime, they're also talking to the Jewish Zionists in London, promising them Israel. So what you had going on from a spin was the British and the French promising everyone whatever they wanted to hear. At the end of it, World War II, basically it was due day. So the Turks are now gone. The Arabs say, okay, I want my kid on the throne in Syria. So Abdullah goes to Syria as the Brits promised, but the French say, wait a minute, that's our territory. They kick him out. So he winds up being put on a throne, since he now was throneless, on a throne in what was part of the original Palestine that was going to be allocated to the Arab Palestinians and the Jewish Palestinians, Transjordan. They cut the original Palestine in half, put him on Transjordan, that became Jordan today. And King Abdullah, who's there today, is the grandson of the original Abdullah. So all of a sudden, what was going to be part of Arab Palestine and Jewish Palestine, half of it was taken away and given to Abdullah and Jordan. So now their UN decides, okay, we're going to take this little bit of land, because the UN just came into being, And you had negotiators who knew nothing about the region, the history of the conflict, and they decided, let's cut it in half. We'll give half to the Arabs and half to the Jews, which is what they did. They called for a partition. Neither side liked the deal the UN cut, so they went to war, the 48 war. And at the end, you have Israel there, and you have the Palestinians without a state. They're all in refugee camps, with a few of them living in Israel and Gaza on the West Bank. And trying to create a Palestinian state in Gaza on the West Bank, as we can see, is not going to work. And Hamas is rearming itself. And we have to remember, and this is a very critical point, Chris, Iran and Israel always got along with each other until these crazy mullahs came into power in 79. In fact, going back to the destruction of the first temple, the Babylonians destroyed the first temple, the Romans the second one. It was the Persians that restored the Jews to Jerusalem and allowed them to build and practice their religion. And that was true all the way through the Shah's times, through 79. It's only since these mullahs, what I call these fanatics, to power and said, we're going to destroy the state of Israel, no Jews there, only Arabs, and death to America. And they started creating Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the different rebel groups in Syria and Iraq. So you have to look at what is the cause of the problem and who's funding it. It's Iran. So this whole issue with the Strait of Iran has got a big impact on Palestine, because the sole purpose of this regime is to destroy Israel and create a Palestinian state. And all the money it gets funds its proxies to do just that, Hezbollah and the Houthis. So what I am proposing is, I'm saying, let's just deal with the facts. Forget it. Palestine is never going to be built in Gaza and the West Bank. Israel is making perfectly sure of that and letting the world know. So where do you put the Palestinians? And we have to remember another very critical point, Chris, is at the end of 48, it wasn't just Arab Palestinians who were kicked out of or left Israel. There was over 800,000 Jews kicked out of all the Arab countries that nobody talks about.
Oh, yeah.
There was more Jewish refugees than Palestinian refugees from Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, you name a Muslim country. And this is the difference in the political spin, because the Jews decided to absorb all these refugees, resettle them, get them gainfully employed, educated. What did the Arab Palestinians do? They put them all in refugee camps rather than resettle them in the Arab countries. Because people forget, before 48 and all these new countries being created, all those Arabs were Palestinians. All of a sudden they became Syrians, Iraqis, Saudis. Yes, they had clans and tribes that were rooted there, but they were all part of Palestine. And instead of absorbing their fellow Palestinians, they made a very public statement that the United Nations in 51, the Jordanian foreign minister, were going to keep them in refugee camps to make a political issue until we can take over Israel again. So these are just historical facts. So I'm saying, let's forget that spin and look for a real solution. What is my proposed solution? I can show you the map that I've got in the book here, and then I'll explain it to you. I've got the map drawn out where you can see, and basically what I'm saying is, take desert in northwest Saudi Arabia, desert in South Syria, South Iraq, desert in East Jordan, and the Sinai Desert in Egypt that has the Red Sea there, so that the new Palestinian state can have a harbor, and part of the West Bank with the road to Jerusalem so their capital can be in Jerusalem. Most of this land is vacant desert. It is all part of historical Palestine. And why not there where you can actually take the 77 billion they are talking about just removing the rubble and making the place ready for construction in Gaza? You can build a whole new country with that kind of money when you're going into a desert. New infrastructure, state-of-the-art facilities, hospitals, schools, housing, and all these people in refugee camps around the world, and Gaza and the West Bank refugee camps can go there. It's part of their historical land, rather than waiting again for something to be rebuilt, that by the time it's rebuilt, it'll go to war again and be destroyed again.
That's a good point. What are your thoughts? It seems to be, I don't know how much of this is a consensus, but it seems to be that all these countries just use the poor Palestinians in Gaza as a cudgel to beat Israel over the head. And if they really cared about these people, in my personal opinion, they would all take them in. Jordan, Egypt, all these people would go, let's just integrate the Palestinians in our society. We'll end their suffrage. More the merrier. That's the way most countries work. Right now, we have countries that are going to disappear here in the next 20 years because their birth rates are so small. Correct. They're going to disappear. Countries like Germany, some of the Eastern Union countries, they're literally going to be gone because they don't have enough of a structure. Even America is going through this right now. Japan has been going through for years. China is going through it because of their one-term policy. Take some people, man. Grow your economy. But they so much want to use this as an excuse to throw rockets at Israel and stuff. I'm not a big fan of the white nationalist, extreme right wing that Netanyahu Bibi has brought in and all the shit that they're doing. But, after October 7th, that was a real stupid thing for someone to do to Israel because they just gave them the card to run with it. And you would think these countries would come to terms if they really cared about the people in Gaza, if they really cared about the Palestinians, they would just say, look, man, this thing's a shit show. It's been a shit show for nearly 100 years. Let's take you all in. We'll split you between all the surrounding countries and all the Arab countries that make this a big deal. And then you can go on building your life. Your economies will probably be better because you got more people. That's how America became great. We took in lots of refugees. Correct. But yeah, does it seem like they just love having this cudgel and they just really don't give a fuck. They just want to abuse the Jews. Is that a good analysis?
I think there's a lot of truth to that because most of these refugee camps are in these other Arab countries. They're keeping them in camps.
Yeah.
That's why if they just let them integrate them into the population, problem solved. Yeah. But they didn't want to do that. And that's why I said they made a deliberate political spin point to keep them in camps, to get them all back into Israel rather than absorb them or do what Israel did, which is exactly what you said. It just welcomed all the Jews that were kicked out, resettled them, and you see what the end result is.
Yeah. I wish they would do that, but do you think there's ever a chance they're just going to wake the fuck up and get with the program, or they're just going to keep being like, yeah, we're just going to keep screwing with this whole thing?
You see, one of the things I talk about in my book is about why the Arab Palestinian didn't do so well as the Jewish Palestinian, because the Arab Palestinian focused on violence and only violence. They didn't have a political leadership or that was also working the political front like the Jewish Zionists were in London working the political front. And that is something that the Arabs historically, because of epigenetics or whatever, just keep self-destroying each other. Between the Shia, Sunni, back and forth. You see it in Sudan at its extremes, but you see it even in the Middle East, in these Arab countries, in Israel. And you know what's really amazing? Actually, this is an example I give of Arab Americans. The last presidential election in Michigan. They all voted for Trump, the guy that imposed the Muslim ban, the guy who moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem because they didn't like Harris because she was with Biden's VP and they were supplying arms to Israel to attack the Arabs. So they were going to support Trump. Did they really think he would be better towards them? And then, much to my surprise, though, 6 months later, the Arab leadership in Michigan admitted that that was a dumb mistake. First time I ever heard political leaders admit that they made a mistake. So that's the syndrome. They keep backing and doing the wrong thing that just keeps violence. It's inbred and endemic.
Yeah. In writing your book, so you lay out the Arabian dreams, I should say, political sandstorms and broken promises, and you come up with a proposal for a two-state solution that will require Arab countries spending time in war, spending time in these conflicts and resources and mind and missiles and all this kind of crap. I wish they would look at the 80 years or 60 years. How long has it been since 1950, I think? 48. And so, yeah, we're almost 75 years, maybe 70.
Yeah.
Almost 100 years. And maybe it's time to, but these people did fight each other for what? Thousands of years in the Bible and the Quran and all that stuff, right? These people have been fighting since, it's kind of like Afghanistan. They've been tribal fighting for the beginning of time. And it's almost like they know no other way. But yeah, you look at so much productivity lost, you look at so much lives lost, money, income for tax-based governments, and also you can just carry this sort of, when really, if you really think about it, your country would probably be amazing if this wasn't your number one objective of destroying Israel and not dealing with the Palestinian order. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. And every president comes in and thinks they're going to fix it. We've had authors that have come on that have studied this on presidents, and every single president comes in and they go, they kind of ride on up in on this tide of we got chosen, so we must be the special smart ones. And so they think that their shit's not going to stink and they're going to get everything right. And evidently every presidency finds out otherwise. But yeah, the people that vote against their own best interests, that's just the most astounding thing to me at all. But I mean, this is where we're at. So what are you going to do? Wait, what are the chances you think that any of these countries that should just take in the Palestinians and say, let's move on. Let's go build some great technology and some I don't know, give houses and healthcare to everybody, and let's just go make a good country. Is there a chance of this happening? Or
I think there is. I think there's more of a chance of each one giving up a little land for a new country rather than just closing down refugee camps in their country and trying to scatter the people throughout the population. That just won't happen. The people won't accept it. And so what makes the most logical sense is to basically get everyone that has these bordering countries and agree who's going to give up what land, who's going to put up what money, and the international bodies contributing the money they keep talking about. Saudi Arabia keeps saying it won't recognize Israel until there is a Palestinian state. Okay, put your money where your mouth is. Contribute some of the land in northwest Saudi Arabia. Have Israel do the same. Have Syria do the same. Iraq the same. And Jordan and Egypt. How come Israel's got to be the only one that's got to absorb them in Gaza and the West Bank?
Yeah.
That's what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it totally doesn't make sense. But evidently right now, what it seems like Netanyahu, Bibi, and Trump, at least for the most part, seem to be on the same page of trying to do some sort of weird, I don't know, the Caribbean sort of beachfront property with Gaza. And it seems, I mean, Bibi with his white nationalist, far extreme right-wing government, they have pretty much destroyed and leveled Gaza. If you look at pictures of it, it's pretty much almost inhabitable at this point.
Correct.
And so maybe this is the moment, I don't know, that where everybody needs to swallow their pride and take some hard decisions and go, all right, we need to fix this stuff. And it's almost, I don't want to accuse Israel of this, but it's almost like they intended. And if you listen to some of the more extremist white nationalist people in his administration, they openly say that it was their intent to destroy and wipe Gaza off the face of the earth so they could wipe it and start again with something new and get rid of the Palestinians. Because they either wanted to kill them all or wipe them all. And there's a lot of people in his administration that feel and speak that way. So maybe this is the time where that's just going to have to happen, because that's where we're at. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly that Netanyahu and his extreme religious fanatics, basically, I have even gone a step further in the book, and I have pointed out some sources that actually say that Netanyahu and his extremists allowed October 7th to happen, just Roosevelt and the U.S. allowed Pearl Harbor to happen so that they could get into a war. And that is why Bibi doesn't want an independent investigation, because it is clear that a lot of the military people were pointing out that Hamas was getting ready to attack. And the information was ignored, or they were told to leave. And in fact, a lot of the troops were moved from Gaza to the West Bank to protect settlers. So this is the kind of stuff I'm bringing out in terms of, okay, let's cut the spin on all fronts and deal with the facts and reality of what happened and why it happened.
Yeah.
But the points you make are right on the money, and I agree with you.
Yeah. So as we go out, give people a final pitch out to pick up the book, where they can order it. I couldn't find it on Amazon. Is it on Amazon yet?
It's not on Amazon yet, because I'm actually trying to sort out my site on Amazon, because it's for some reason in somebody else's name now. So I've got to try and reclaim it. So that's and we will get it done by the time the book comes out, September 1. That's the reason we moved the date, is to sort out Amazon. But in the meantime, the book is available on my website at custommadebooks.com, custommadebooks.com, made spelled MAID. And 2 M's in the middle, one for custom and one for maids. Don't make it 1 M.
Thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Great questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm glad we're in agreement on this thing, because a lot of people disagree, but it is, I think we need to, the selfishness of these governments and then the people that are suffering. I'm not a guy who's running around going whatever. I love the Israelis and I love the Israelites. I'm not a fan of the white nationalist extreme right government that we have now again as well.
We're on the same page, brother.
That's why we're walking down the road together into Iran, which is not working, evidently. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, wonderful having a show, Peter. Folks, order up his book where fine books are sold. It's called The Two-State Solution, Custom Made Palestine for a New World Disorder. And that custom made title is MAID, so that you can search it properly on the internet. Be out August 1st, 2026. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.